Hi, this video is an attempt to clarify how to use pivot tables on problem 34, page 76. This is a homework assignment problem coming out of module 7. So let me start by just saying, if you can get to the point where you understand what it is you're doing with Excel, then life becomes a little easier. I realize for some of you, you don't have a lot of exposure to Excel, but I mean, I'm sorry that's the case, but I need you to get kind of caught up to speed rather quickly, because almost every MBA I've ever worked with, Excel is their tool of choice. And it's a pretty decent tool. Not my tool of choice, perhaps, but it is a very decent tool. And so I am pushing you this direction so that when you go out to work, somebody says, oh, you're an MBA, here, fix this, that maybe if it's related to a spreadsheet, you'll have a lot of exposure to working with spreadsheets. So here we go. I'm working again on problem 34, page 76. Part A says, prepare a cross-tabulation of data on industry and brand revenue. Cross-tabulation is a two-dimensional idea. We have, up to this point, been working with just one-dimensional ideas. So it's kind of like saying, I'm going to construct a frequency distribution, but this time the frequency distribution exists in two dimensions. So let me highlight the data where everything's coming from. Let me choose Insert and Pivot Table and place it right here below A. Well, what does it ask for? Data on industry. I'm going to put that in the rows. So it's created my categories with the unique industry labels. And then in my columns, it says brand revenue. So I'm going to take brand revenue down into the columns where it's going to create a mess, right? Probably every company has a different level of revenues, and this is not helping me to see it as one apiece. So I'm going to do the grouping. So notice how I did that. I just went up into any one of the columns and choose group, and it comes up with some choices. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go from 0 to 150, and I'm going to go 30 units at a time and click OK. So now I have more categories. These are categories based on brand revenues. So the next thing I need to do is actually fill the table. This is an AND idea. So I'm looking for intersections. I'm looking, for example, in automotive and luxury industries, where revenues are between 0 and brand revenues are between 0 and 30 billion. So to get the AND working, I'm going to either drag industry down into the values box or brand revenues down into the value box. It doesn't matter which. You're going to get the same answer either way. Okay? So what this is telling me is that there are 10 industries, industry of automotive and luxury, that there are 10 corporations with brand revenue in the 0 to $30 billion range. So this is an AND. Once again, it's this and this. So 10 together. For example, this one, whatever other means, and in the 30 to $60 billion range. There are 6 of them. Okay? So I'm going to highlight this inner part of the table because I need to separate it from everything else we're doing. I'll make it orange. In the next chapter, this orange region, we will convert into something we call a joint probability. Now, I'm going to highlight a couple of other regions. So let me highlight this, kind of a pale, dark green works for me. And then let me do this one in a purple. Okay. That purple part makes it hard to see the numbers. Let me work on a different shade of purple, perhaps. Let's do that peach color. Okay. This in the green is actually a one-dimensional idea. This is actually the frequency distribution for the items in the rows. So in the list in column B, there are 15 automotive and luxury counts of industries. So financial services, there are 14 industries that we've counted out of this list. In technology, there are 15. Now these down here are another one-dimensional idea, but this is a one-dimensional idea based on revenues, the things in the columns. So I have 41 of my observations have brand revenues between 0 and 30 billion. 20 of my observations have brand revenues between 30 and 60 billion, and so on. So when I start moving now to part B, part B is asking for one of these, what we will call next chapter, marginal ideas. One of these, either this orange row or this green column. So let's read it, see what it says. Prepare a frequency distribution of the data on brand revenue. So it's really asking just for the brand revenue ideas. Sorry, I'm pointing to the wrong place. The brand revenue ideas. And it actually will look like these labels up here on the top and this bottom row. Okay. Well, to construct it, I'm going to, again, use a pivot table. So insert the data, tell Excel where I want it to the table to be, put it right here. The question is asking me about brand revenues. So let me put that in as the rows, and notice that because I have made it categorical up here, that Excel chose to make it categorical down here. Now that doesn't mean I have to leave it that way, but it's trying to think ahead for me, Excel is, and say, oh, you must be using this information up here. Okay, so let me go back down in here. Brand revenues is going to default to account, and notice that this column is equivalent to this row. So this is a one-dimensional distribution over brand revenue. All right, part C. Let me place it. What conclusions can you draw about the type of industry and brand revenue? The and puts me back up into the orange part of this first table. Okay? So I've put the vast majority of industries have revenues less than 75 billion. You know, and when I answered the question, I must have used different categories to place it at 75 billion. But you know, certainly the vast majority would mean, you know, what's that? Some 77 out of the 82 have revenues. So exactly 50% of the industries have revenues between 0 and 25. Okay, once again, I must have used different categories to be getting this answer. So hopefully when you did your work, you did whatever it is that the textbook asks you to do. Okay, now I'm going to create another table. And let's see if I can follow what this says. Again, a cross-tabulation. So a cross-tabulation is, again, a two-dimensional idea. And it says it wants cross-tabulation of data on industry row and 1 year value change. That's going to be my column. So let me go up. Let me highlight the data again. Let me go back to insert and choose a pivot table. And tell Excel where I want that pivot table to start. And then let's see if I can fill it in correctly. It wants industry in the rows. All my categories are now uniquely defined. And it wants the 1 year value change in the columns. And once again, I probably need to group those so that they're not so hard to look at. So I'm going to go from negative 60 to 50. And I don't know, let's move by 20. Hopefully that's what the textbook asked for. If not, I apologize, but we'll still be okay. Notice nothing has been filled in yet. hasn't been filled in because we haven't told Excel what to do yet. So here's what I need to do. I need to try to get these columns to look right to me. I need to choose either industry or value change, it doesn't matter. And now here's what I know. 11 of the, in the automotive and luxury industry, 11 of the objects in there, right? There were how many? 15? 11 of them have a value percent, a 1 year value percent change of 11%. Okay? So this one is financial services and a value change of 0 to 19%. Okay? So we can again read this as the ands if we're asked about objects that are joint, so mixing this and this. This can be thought of again as our margin, since we will be dealing with marginals very soon. And this can be thought of as our other marginal, the one for the value, the 1 year value change. Okay. Let's go down and E. Prepare a frequency distribution for the data on 1 year value change percentage. Well, I've got it. It's right here in the peach color. I know that, and hopefully now you do. What it's asking me for is take a one-dimensional look at just the value change. All right, well, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to create a table just like we did in B. Choose pivot table. Tell Excel where I want to put it. We want the 1 year value change. Yeah, notice how I just kept what I had up here. And then I need the counts for the frequencies. See, I just recreated this row. Life is okay. Okay. All right. Now, one thing before I leave, I want to look at this scatter plot. Most of you did okay with this. When you choose to do a scatter plot with Excel, highlight the data, choose the insert tab. Don't do an XY plot. Excel, I don't know why Excel even has it there. What Excel assumes, when you choose an XY plot, Excel assumes that you want it being Excel, to create the x-axis, and that these two columns I've highlighted are really up on the vertical axis. Now what I want is a scatter plot. Okay, so just to scatter. This one works as good as any. And then I can place that in there. Now, if I want more, I can go up and look at the quick layouts. Some of you gave me something that had a trend line in it. That's actually something that we've got to figure out how to construct eventually. But that's how that plot is put in there. So hopefully you find this helpful. Let me know if there's other things I can do for you. Thank you.